So copy constructors are basically used to copy one object into another. So we know that in object-oriented programming there are objects, and each and every object has the same class but they have different data. So let's write an example here. Class student, our same example, and we will create private members. Float marks. In the public section, I will create a constructor student, and in this constructor I will initialize the values of the private section 0, 0. So this is a default constructor, and I can also assign the values using parameters. Int a, int b. So this is an example of a parametrized constructor. So I will write marks equals b. So this is an example of a parametrized constructor. So I will leave this space for the copy constructor, which we will implement. So in the int main function, we know that we are creating an object of this class. So we can create as many objects as we want. So if I am writing student S1, it will call this constructor. So I will not do that. I will just call it using some values 7, 5.6. So we know that this is an example of a parametrized constructor. So let's suppose I write this line, student S2. So now I'm going to create another objects. So this is the second object S2, but what I want is I want to copy the first object into this. So let's suppose this is S1 and this is S2. So what I want to do is I want to copy all the properties and all the you can say functions in this object. But if we are going to copy this, we will have to use a copy constructor for that purpose. So if you're writing it like this, so this invocation, I will not say this is an invocation, this is object creation. So if you will write student S2 equals to S1, so this means that you are copying the value of S1 into S2. So in this case, the compiler will call the copy constructor. So if the programmer has not created a copy constructor, so let's say we have not created a copy constructor, so the compiler will automatically create this copy constructor and it will also make it public. So the compiler will automatically create a copy constructor and also it will make it public. That means that it can be accessed outside this class. So let's say this is the ending of the class. So this copy constructor can be accessed outside this class. So what does that mean? So if you want to, if you're writing this line student s2 equals s1, or if you're writing it like this student s2, and now you're passing s1 as an argument. So you know that s1 is an object and you are passing this object as value. So this will automatically call copy constructor, and the copy constructor will automatically copy the value of the roll number and marks. So it will copy the value of roll number and marks of student 1 into the roll number and marks of student 2. So again I will repeat it. If you're writing this line or this line, the compiler will automatically create copy constructor if you have not created it. So you can see that I have not created a copy constructor, and I will create a copy constructor to show you how it looks like. So before that I will explain what is the use of copy constructor. So in this line, what the compiler will do, compiler will copy the members of the object 1 into the values, into the members of object 2. So the student 1 has some roll number and marks, and the student 2 will the marks of the student 1 will get copied to the marks of student 2, and similarly roll number will get copied to this one. So these are two objects, and they will hold the same value. That's why we have used an assignment operator. So a copy constructor looks like this. It has same student. Since it is a constructor, its name is same as the class name, but in the parameter you will write student followed by a reference, that is ampersand. And in this copy constructor what you will have to do is, so let's say there is a reference variable ampersand s. So this is ampersand s. I will make it more clear here. So this is ampersand s. So this is an example of a copy constructor. So whenever you are calling this line, the compiler will look for a copy constructor. In this case also, they both are same cases. In this case also, the compiler will look for a constructor like this. So this is a constructor that accepts a reference to the object 1. So you can see that this is s1, and the reference of s1 is stored in the variable s. So what we are going to do is, we will assign a roll number of student 2 as s dot a, or I should write s dot roll number. So the roll number of the second student will be equal to s dot, s means the reference of the first student, and we are using a dot operator to access the roll number of student 1. So it will be like this. And similarly, if you want to assign the marks of the student 2, you will have to make it equal to the marks of the student 1, and we can access student the members of the first object s1 by using this reference s. So s dot roll number will be equal to the value of roll number of the first student. So let's suppose the value of first student, the roll number of S1 is 7. So let's suppose then the roll number of S2 will be equal to 7, and similarly the marks will also get equal to 5.6. So this is the use of copy constructor. You are going to copy the values of the first object into the second one. So you can just create a copy constructor and you can just initialize the values of the second object by using the values of the second object in this way. So even if you are not if you're not creating this copy constructor, let's suppose the programmer forgets to create this copy constructor, the compiler will automatically create it and it will make it public. So I will write here two main points. When is copy constructor called? So a copy constructor is called in two cases. We know that in these two cases also copy constructor is called, but there are two more cases when a copy constructor will be called automatically. The first one is when an object is passed by value to a function. So let's suppose you have passed an object to the function by using call by value method. So in that case we will have to copy. So we will have to copy the first object, and we know that the first object is the object that was passed at the call time. So copy the first object into the second object, and we know that the second object is nothing but it is inside the arguments of the function definition itself. So in that case the compiler will search for the copy constructor. It will call the copy constructor and it will pass the reference to the object, the first object, that is the object that was passed at the call time. So let's say in the int main function you have created a function void sum, and now you are passing an object, let's say s1. So this is the function call. So this is the first object, and let's now say you are creating the actual function here, and now you are creating another object, student s4, and now what you are doing is you are defining this whole function here. So this object will get copied to this object because this is a call by reference method. So to copy one object to another, copy constructor is used. So if the programmer has created a copy constructor, it will get called. But if the programmer has not called, or if the programmer has not even created this constructor, so the compiler will automatically create it and it will make it public so that it can be accessed anywhere. And the reason why it is public is so that we can actually copy it in the main function and elsewhere in the program. So this is the first case. So whenever you want to pass an object to a function using call by value method, a copy constructor will be called. The second one is, the second case is when function returns an object. So we have seen that too, that we have covered this topic, how functions can return objects too. So we know that functions can return objects. So if a function will return an object, we will have to store it in some other object to access that. So let's suppose I will create another object and I will write it like this, sum, and I will give some other object to this function, and this function will not be void this time. It has a data type student because it is returning a student, and it will return a temporary variable, and this temporary variable is nothing but an object of the class. So if a function is returning object, we know that we will have to store that object into some other object, and we know that if we want to store it, we are just going to copy it into this one. So whenever we want to copy one object into another, we will use a copy constructor. Either we can create it, or if we have not created it, our compiler will automatically create it. So these are the two cases. Number one is when object will pass the value using call by value method to a function, and we have given this examples, a small example here. And the number two case is when functions return object, so that we can store that return object into some other variable. We will have to copy, and we will use a copy constructor in that case. So now we have covered the topic constructors,